This video is going to give you guys a few pointers on some specific things in Venngage that may help you if you're running into trouble, a few useful tips I've learned, an overview of how to do the charts, and also how to actually share your Venngage infographic with me when you're all finished with it. So I've just kind of worked up a very basic rough draft of an infographic. So if we're looking at this infographic here, my major visual item is going to be this kind of swarm of bees here. I've got my title, of course, and kind of formatted nicely in this circle. And when it comes to my two minor visual images, I've got my kind of money bag here and my hand growing a piece of a crop. So again, if we're thinking about a checklist for the infographic, check, I've got my major visual element, and I've got at least two minor visual elements. And if I were actually making a full infographic, I probably would have a few more of these pieces of information and then a few more icons to go along with them. So I would have more than two of those minor visual elements. Another thing that's a checklist for the infographic, right, is to be using your research sources. So I've given you guys two examples of how to do that here. So in this version, we do a full APA in-text citation. So that tells my reader, okay, this is where that information is coming from. And when they go down to my references page at the bottom here, they very clearly have that Benjamin and McCallum source listed. So that's one way you can do it. And if you do it that way, then just make sure you're doing that for both of your research sources. You also can put a number after your piece of text that's coming from a source. So obviously if I was following this format, I would have put a 1 here for my first source, and then a 2 here for my second source. So if I were to follow that model, I would come down and have 2 as my second reference entry here, and then I would know, okay, number 2 corresponds with number 2 in here. And then you continue that numbering for any additional sources you would use. So either one of these is acceptable. It's up to you which one you prefer, either in-text citation or a number that's going to correspond with the reference entry. And as you see here, I've just kind of very slightly included my references. It's very sort of small, out of the way. It's not kind of drawing a lot of attention to itself. That's sort of just what I'm looking for. I just put this in the text box. And again, don't worry about double spacing or hanging indents in an infographic in Venngage. I'm more going to be looking, okay, do they have their reference entry? And does it have all that necessary information? I'm not so worried about the formatting in terms of the hanging indent and double spacing, but do make sure your information's in the right order. Make sure you italicize the things that need to be italicized. And now I want to briefly go over how to do charts. So I've got some information about bee populations in the United States from survey data from a few years. So I've gone to that charts tab. I've clicked on a line chart because I really want to show that change of information. And now I need to put that information into my chart. If I double click on that chart, it brings up the actual sort of Excel spreadsheet kind of look here. I can change the chart style from this menu. And I also have some settings options here. So I really only need one line because I'm not comparing anything else. So I could close that out. I'll click on that and delete that column too. And then here I want my x-axis and then my y-axis. My x-axis is going to be the survey year, and we see that my x-axis updated there. Now column 2 is going to be average bee colony losses. Okay, so now I've got that on there. I've got a nice chart that's showing that trend. So I don't necessarily want to have a legend. I do want to have my labels on though. So I can turn that on or off. It depends on how much data you have, but if you want to give your reader the actual data points there, they could see what those actually are. I would like to have my survey year title reflected on my x-axis, and then I do want to put my y-axis as % average loss. And again, that just kind of clearly tells my reader what that data is actually expressing. And again, depending on how your chart is organized, you may need to put titles. You may decide that it's not information you need to include. So now I'm going to come here. I'm going to save that chart. And then last but not least, I'd want to put a caption underneath with my in-text citation in this case, or a footnote again. So you could kind of offer a caption that offers some extra explanation about what is going on in the chart. It could be a related piece of information too. So now I could say that the honeybee losses were cause for alarm for beekeepers who were concerned about the health of their hives in the future. So I could have kind of kept that a little bit more specific to the chart or kind of made it broader for my topic there. Again, now I've got some data from my sources. I've got a clear chart, I've got my in-text citation included there. So any of these charts would be fair game for your guys' infographics. You don't have to do a line chart. A pie chart might be a better option for you. Some of these bubble charts are kind of cool. And I've included some resources in Blackboard if you're struggling with the charts, but I'm also happy to help if you're having any issues. So when you're finally ready to share this with me, you are going to press publish. So I'll press publish there. You can give it a new title because it's going to default to the template name. And then this link right here, this URL, is what you're going to share with me in Blackboard. So if you do the URL that's at the top of the page, that's not going to take me to the link. It'll probably take me to an error page. So you're just going to want to copy and paste that. I'm going to right click there, copy link address. And then when you go to submit that infographic to me, you'll go to this right submission box for me, and you'll paste that link right in there for me. And then I can copy and paste it, and I should be able then to access your infographic. If you've got a color scheme and you're trying to be consistent, so let's say, again, I wanted to make this circle the same color as this green money bag. I would go to my little color drop here, click on this little eyedropper, and then I can click anywhere and get the color that I want. So if you're trying to be consistent, it can be kind of hard to equally identify the color. You can also type in these codes and get the same color. If you want to send things forward or backwards, so in this case I wanted my icon to be in front, maybe it wasn't before, I could move that back. I can move it all the way back. If I want to move my circle all the way back, I would click that. And that way you can kind of layer different things on top of each other. You can put color boxes behind your text. And again, move kind of the order of things around. And let's say you've got something sort of perfectly all together, but then it's kind of not, you're just moving individually. You can't kind of get to group together. Or here, in this case, this is two different pieces. So what I did is I clicked my original big circle there. I hold down the shift key. I click that second icon, and then I make that a group. And now again, I can move the whole thing. It's not going to move the circle and the icon individually. If I click that, and also that, I can group the text and the icon. So again, now the whole unit's moving together. That might just save you from some frustration if you're trying to rearrange things to get your spacing to work later on. And then if you need to add a second page, you can do that there. Again, if you need to just make it a little bit longer to fit your reference entries in, you could change the height of the document. So again, if you have any questions or run into any troubles, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask me. I'm happy to kind of help on an individual basis there. But hopefully this video gives you a few tips and tricks and ideas about how to use Venngage to make your infographic as visually appealing and hopefully as easy to create as possible.